The first line of this book is, I am not a New Yorker, and I want to go home. Well, bitch, first of all, I didn't fucking ask you that. Secondly, if you wanted to go home, you could have just go the fuck home, because if you went home, I wouldn't have had to waste my time reading this book. Hello my lovelies, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we will be talking about the first 5 books that I read for the year, between the months of January and February. So this is like a January-February wrap-up. My reading this year has been very slow and inconsistent, which is kind of my brand. But either way, I still read 5 things, and I'm excited to talk about them with y'all. I read a 2-star book, 3 4-star books, and a 5-star book, so I'll be talking about them in that order as I usually do. I'll also be talking about the books that I'll also be talking about the books that I am currently reading, as well as another book that I'm going to read for a very special project that I'm working on with some friends, and it's going to be a fun announcement, so you have to stay tuned to the end of the video to get that announcement, because it's going to be fun. Right, so the first book that I have to talk about is What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli. I gave this 2.5 stars. I didn't like it, as you can tell by the introduction of this video. So the thing about this book is that it did not deliver. It did not deliver in the quality standards that I was expecting, because, you know, these are 2 very well-known, well-revered authors, and rightfully so, because they are amazing. I've read from them in the past, and I was expecting nothing but excellence. And even though this does have a high rating on Goodreads, I noticed that on BookTube, a lot of people don't like this book. Even people who are fans of these authors didn't really take too well to this book. So this could be me talking out of my ass, which I tend to do quite a lot. But I do feel as if the bar wasn't set very high for this, if you catch my drift. Like, the publishers knew that if Adam and Becky wrote like a fucking 4-line poem on a banana peel, all these mother effers would still buy that shit. So they knew that this was going to be a cash grab, so I feel like the standards wasn't really set very high. I don't know if that's me kind of just like reaching for the stars, you know, but I just didn't think it was great, and I could see why so many people did not like this book and was so disappointed in it. It's about a boy called Arthur and another boy called Ben, and they both meet in a post office in New York City, and they fall in love because they believe that the universe puts them together or some shit like that, and then they end up getting separated before they could exchange names and numbers by like a marching band or a flash mob, but just like a noisy group of people, I don't know. And they spend like the first quarter of the book trying to find each other, and then they spend the rest of the book going on awkward dates after they found each other. And that's basically the summary. Like, you could read that on the flap, and you read the whole damn book. You just had to read the flap. You don't have to read the whole book. It doesn't pay off. The thing about this book, and my biggest issue with it, is that the pacing is so off. It's too long, and the story literally peaks and plateaus after they found each other after the first 100 pages. I felt blue-balled. It felt like it was building up to something when it literally built up to nothing. This book had no payoff whatsoever. The side characters were really bland and annoying and irritating, and there was one particular side character who I didn't like. I think it was Dylan. Most people love Dylan. I don't know what the fuck y'all love Dylan for. I find him obnoxious and loud and annoying, and I hate, one of my biggest pet peeves is when you have a side character whose entire character is defined by one exaggerated personality trait, and for Dylan it was the fact that he was supposed to be like funny and making jokes all the time, which I didn't find him to be funny. I just wanted him to be just annoying and loud and obnoxious. What else didn't I like about this book? Oh, I hate it. I don't like when authors are pulling strings, and what I mean by that is I don't want to read a book and see the authors sitting down going like, oh yes, let me write this, they'll love to read that, oh my god. And I feel like that was very much the case with this book when it came to the Harry Potter and Hamilton references. Oh my god, it's so annoying, because on every other page it's just like, oh my god, Hamilton this, Harry Potter that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hamilton and Harry Potter are fantastic, they are amazing, and I don't mind seeing the references of those things in here. But like when you're overdoing it, when you're constantly doing it on every other page because you know that you're trying to appeal to a particular audience, it becomes quite frankly annoying, and I just wasn't about it. There was also this talk of the universe and the universe wanting to put them together. Let me tell y'all something about these YA contemporary novels. Y'all motherfuckers owe the universe some kind of royalties, the way y'all be calling up this woman's name in your book every damn minute. The universe this, the universe that. Is this a science fiction novel? Why are you talking about the universe for? And it's like, okay, I get that the universe could be some kind of like metaphorical, spiritual meaning in a story. It was done really well in what you call that book again? The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicole Dennis-Benn. She did an excellent like exploration of what the universe is and what that means and what it means to like bring people together and that kind of stuff. This book doesn't do that. It's just these two characters thinking that they're meant to be because the universe put them together, so they tried to meant to be. And that's the thing that I liked about this book. I like the relationship between the two main protagonists, and I like themselves, I thought they were very well-rounded, flawed characters. And I thought their relationship dynamic was interesting, which a lot of people who dislike this book would probably disagree with me with. Most people say that they have no chemistry and they're really annoying, and that's kind of the point. The point of the book is that they are flawed characters and they have no chemistry, and they are two characters who like each other, but they realize they're not really meant for each other, but they want to be meant for each other, so they try to be meant for each other. It's a really good concept, you know. It's that's why it's called What If It's Us. They're trying to make it work. It's a good concept, and it's a concept that has potential, and it's not a bad book. Like, I mean, I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it, so it had the potential to be amazing. I think where it really fell flat was in its execution and its delivery. These authors have done better, and they could have done better with this book. And that's just the tea. What else do I have to talk about? Okay, before I get into the other two novels that I read, I should talk about the 2 books that I read for school. I read 2 books for school. Look at me being educated and academic. Oh my god. They were both 4-star reads. The first is Capitalism, a Ghost Story by Arundhati Roy. This was so fucking brilliant. I don't know if I actually read it. I read an article online that we were supposed to read for class called Capitalism, a Ghost Story by Arundhati Roy. And it's a very, very famous article, and it's very, very long. And you know, when you have a long, famous piece of writing, it tends to be on Goodreads sometimes. So I went on Goodreads and I saw it was there. So I marked it off as read. I don't know if the article was like a shortened version of the book, because the book itself is supposed to be like 130 something pages, and the article was very long. It could well be 130 something pages, but I couldn't tell because you can't really count pages on an online article. So I don't know if I actually read the book or not, but I feel like even if it was a shortened version of the book, I still got the main gist of it, so it counts. Basically, this is just it's a non-fiction, obviously, and it is basically Arundhati Roy dragging capitalism. And it's beautiful. She is so sassy and shady, and she's just like throwing shade at all of these businesses and all of these companies that are literally fucking up people's lives in the name of money. This article really reveals to the reader how capitalism has not ever worked for people, and it does not work for people, and it will not continue to work for people. It works for some people, and for those people who it works for in the upper class and even sometimes in the middle class, we don't really see its negative effects on the majority of the population. So we just kind of go ahead in it, and we roll with it, and we're like, oh well, you know, there's no alternatives, and like, you know, we just kind of have to deal with it, and life is hard, and oh my god, like, but it's like you don't actually know that this is literally ruining people's lives. And Arundhati Roy, actually, she's from India, and she focuses specifically on the Indian experience, and she's looking at how different parts of India have been negatively affected by these capitalist endeavors that are literally putting people's lives in danger and on the line just for the sake of making money for the few at the top. And it's fucked up, you know? It's like, why y'all doing that? You don't need to live in a 27-story house, you know? And that's a thing in India. Look it up. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I liked it. Read it if you want to be woke. Don't read it if you don't want to be woke. I mean, I can't control your life. The other book I read for school was Gender Negotiations Among Indians in Trinidad from 1917 to 1947 by Patricia Muhammad. This book is brilliant. It is basically looking at the reconstruction of the Indian community in Trinidad after the indentureship system. If you didn't know, the indentureship system was a labor system that brought Indians to the Caribbean after African slavery ended, and I'm a descendant of those Indians. Thanks white people for being lazy and racist. Oh my god. So the indentureship system did end in 1917, and basically the main way that they reconstructed the community was through instituting gender norms. Basically, we're looking specifically at how the oppression of women was key in that reconstruction of the community, and the control of their sexualities and autonomies and freedoms and so such was a major factor in maintaining the traditional Indian culture, whilst also trying to adapt to this new creolized, westernized Caribbean society. It also talks about the negotiations that both men and women engaged in order to sort of like secure their well-being within oppressive circumstances. It is such a brilliant book, and if you are looking at any kind of Indian diaspora history or any kind of history of the Caribbean or Indians in the Caribbean, this is essential reading. So please do yourself the favor and read it if you need to. I mean, if you don't need to, you don't have to read it, but it's still good because, you know, you should learn some stuff about the world around you. It's a good thing to do. My next 4-star book was another one that I read for fun, and that was Diaries, The Great Is Not Okay by Adib Kodam. This book was so fucking good, y'all. It is a book about a boy called Darius. He's 15 years old. He's from Portland, Oregon. His dad is white, his mom is Iranian, so he's half Persian, but they never really went back to Iran after Darius was born. He always had trouble connecting with that aspect of his heritage. That compounded with the fact that he's dealing with a shit ton of insecurities, really complicated relationship with his dad, bullies at school, he's coping with depression, coming to terms with his sexuality. All of that comes together to make for a really uncomfortable identity crisis. And that's worsened by the fact that his family finally decides that they want to take their first trip to Iran because his grandfather over there has fallen ill and they want to go spend some time with him before the inevitable happens. So we're following him as he goes to Iran for the first time, and he's experiencing this aspect of his life and his culture for the first time among his maternal family, who he's also meeting for the first time, and this boy named Sohrab, or I don't speak Farsi, I'm sorry. So, you know, he meets this boy and he kind of likes him, so... And the story just, nothing really happens. It's a very character-centric story. It's episodic in a way because, like, each chapter is like its own different arc. It's not a very linear story. It's not a plot-driven story. So that's what you're looking for. You're definitely not going to find it with this book. And that's honestly my only issue with it, really. I just felt like it had more room for excitement. Even though it is a character-centric story, I felt like there could have been something a little bit more engaging about it, other than the main character himself, who was engaging. But I just felt like, you know, I just need a little extra spice, just a little pinch of something more, if you catch my drift. Especially since all of the main epiphanies that he comes to, the slight climaxes that we did get, all happened closer to the end of the book. So it just felt like, you know, when you're drinking like a cup of coffee and like the bottom is where all of like the sediments settle, so you know that tastes kind of richer. That's the experience I got when I was reading this book. So I feel like if the story was a little bit more balanced out, I would have enjoyed it more. It would have been a 5-star instead of a 4-star. But that being said, it was still amazing. Deep Kodam's writing is brilliant. Oh my god, I love the way this man writes. He's writing from the perspective of a 15-year-old who's experiencing so many things for the first time. And you're really seeing that Iran and the city of Yazd, where he lives, or where his family lives, is just a character of its own in this novel. You feel like if you're there experiencing it for the first time too with the main protagonist, and that was my favorite aspect of this book. I loved it so much, and I never read anything set in Iran before reading this one, so it was a really good way to kind of like familiarize myself with a country that I don't really know much about. So I really enjoyed reading this book for that reason. I also loved Darius. He's precious. I love his family. I love the family dynamic in this book. I love how the relationship with him and his mother, his sister, his father, his best friend, his grandparents were handled. I thought it was just such a beautiful book in so many different ways. Besides that one little critique I had, I think this is such an important story as well, and I definitely think that everybody should read it because it's good. Read it. Whew, the last book I have to talk about, y'all. Ooh, this is my 5-star read, y'all. Oh my god, this book blew my ass into smithereens and blasted those smithereens into space with trajectories that lie beyond the boundaries of the observable motherfucking universe. It is so good, y'all. That is The Love and Lies of Roxana Ali by Sabina Khan. Now, I don't know where I don't even know where to start. Y'all have to just trust me with this one. I cannot fully articulate my thoughts on this book, because I can't bring those things into words, if you know what I mean. So it's really difficult for me to talk about how this book truly made me feel, but y'all just need to read it for yourself because that's how amazing it was. It's a book about a girl called Roxana Ali. She's Muslim American. Her parents are really strict Bengali Muslim parents, and they're very conservative, and they want her to get married and all that kind of stuff. But Roxana is also gay, and then they end up finding out that she's gay, and that sparks problems in her life. And before shit gets the chance to hit the fan, they end up having to go on a trip to Bangladesh because her grandmother over there falls ill. Much like Darius the Great, her grandmother falls ill, so she has to go to Bangladesh for the first time in a couple of years with her parents to see her grandmother, and all of the problems that was about to fester in America happen in Bangladesh, and her parents not the best people. They do some awful things to her. And this is a good point to say that this book is very dark. There is homophobic violence. There is talk of sexual assault. There is just, if you're not into stuff like, you know, people being held hostage and locked up in their room and that kind of stuff, this book could be potentially triggering. So be careful when you're reading it. It's not a very light-hearted queer romance at all. It's a story about a girl who is straddling multiple identities that contradict each other, that don't seemingly fit well together, and it's about how she's trying to find a space within who she is whilst also dealing with some very unfortunate external factors that are being imposed on her life. I don't want to say too much, you just kind of have to go into this book blindly and just experience it on your own, because it is an experience and it is so incredibly plot driven. I didn't expect that. By the time you get like halfway through this book, you're like, shit, bitch, what the fuck is going to happen next? How is this bitch going to get out of this situation? Like, it's so good. Such an enthralling and compelling read. And there are issues with this book. One could say that a lot of things happen conveniently throughout the story to drive the plot forward. The romance in this book is not really fun because the main protagonist, you don't really get to see much of the romance, first of all, because the majority of it is set in Bangladesh and the main protagonist's girlfriend is back in America. And she's kind of a dick, you know, like her parents are slightly Islamophobic and she sort of internalizes that, and she's not really comfortable with the way that Ruxana tries to hide their relationship, which is valid and understandable, you know. So it's not a very fun relationship to read about because they have a lot of issues going on because of Ruxana's situation, and also because Ariana, Ruxana's girlfriend, is just very selfish, you know. She's very self-absorbed and she lacks a lot of empathy, which is fine because she's a human being and she's flawed, you know. That doesn't make her a bad person in the book. It just kind of realistically shows that not every romantic love interest is going to be this perfect, oh yes babe, I'm here for you and I love you and you're the best thing in my life and I'll do anything for you. No, sometimes people are selfish and that's just the reality of the situation, you know. But I love the family dynamic in this book. Even though her parents are god fucking awful, you know throughout the novel that they love Ruxana more than anything else. You see, the thing about growing up in a lot of these conservative cultures, especially for older people, fitting into the mold that is prescribed to you is a matter of survival. You have to abide by the laws of your religion, you have to abide by the norms of your culture, otherwise you are going to be deemed unfit to exist in this society, and you face so much punishment and policing for transgressing any kind of boundaries that are set up for you. So when you're reading this book, of course her parents are disgusting and selfish, and that does not excuse their behavior whatsoever, but you have to understand that literally this is what these people have been taught from the minute that they were born. You can't do these things because what you're literally doing is you are destroying the foundation that your entire culture, your entire knowledge system was based on. And you get to see that throughout the novel, and you get to see how her parents sort of deconstruct that and unlearn that and have to be forced to come to the reality that their daughter is gay and they have to accept it, you know. And I think that was a really beautiful part of this novel, although what had to happen for them to accept her was yeah, it's a tough book to read. It's a very tough book to read. I also like that there were members of her family who were fully supportive of her. You know, there's a stereotype that all Muslim people are like this and they all have to conform to these standards, and then, you know, they're not going to be supportive and they're not going to be pro-LGBTQ because to be Muslim means to be anti-LGBTQ. But this book kind of deconstructs that in a way, because you have characters who are in this book who are Muslim, who are practicing, who are doing all of the things they're supposed to do, but they love and support Ruxana nonetheless, you know, without, you know, unequivocally. And I loved that about this book as well. Another thing I found quite interesting is that the mother in the book is the one who instigates everything. She's the one who calls all of these shots. She's the one who, you know, puts Ruxana through so much shit. And, you know, there's this idea that a patriarchal family is one where the father is in charge and he's calling the shots. That's not necessarily the case. You can have a patriarchal family where the mother is the one doing everything, because she's trying to get Ruxana to conform to these patriarchal standards of what a young Muslim Bengali woman should be. She's the one propagating the patriarchy in this family, and I found that to be quite interesting, because just because a family is patriarchal and abides by patriarchal values does not necessarily mean that the father is the one in control and making all the decisions. It could be the mother, because that's what she was taught from young. She was taught from young that this is how life is supposed to be, so you have to make sure that life is like this, even if your husband doesn't make that effort himself. So found that to be quite interesting as well. There's so much I could unpack with this book, and there's so much I could say, but as I said, I just can't really begin to articulate myself because this book meant so much more to me than anybody will ever know. So I'm just giving this 5 stars because it's amazing. It's not the best book ever. A lot of people don't really like it. A lot of people have mixed feelings about it, and understandably so. I could see why, but I also don't really give a fuck because I think it was amazing, and I'm reading for me. I'm not reading for y'all. 5 stars. Read it. It's good, it's better than your fave. Speaking of your fave, let's talk about what I'm currently reading. In my last video, I said I was reading this book, and I'm still reading it. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's not bad. It's not bad. Like, I like it. I was very intrigued with the world, and the setup of the world, and like the dynamic of the world and so such. But I kind of got my you know, I got my stomach full. Like, you know, I was like, okay, that's how the world is, and at this point I just don't really care anymore. I don't really care anymore, and I feel kind of bad because, like, I don't want to DNF it, I want to read it. I know most of these fantasy books are like this, like the first 100 pages are just so intriguing because, you know, you're in the world and you're being introduced to everything, and then the middle is like, okay, what the fuck is happening? And then the end gets back to like that, you know, that page turning, you know, engaging sort of thing, because that's when all of the climax and all of the twists and all of the plot twists and reveals are happening and so such. So I feel like at this point now I'm just in the middle of the book and I'm just kind of chugging through. I don't really care at this point. I think it's good. It's a good book. It's not a bad book. I just don't really care. So I will try to finish it because I did go out and spend full hardcover price on this one because I literally make fucking horrible financial decisions when it comes to books. So I'm not going to give up on this book yet, but I'll let you know. It's interesting. The next book I'm currently reading is so good. I'm only 32 pages in, but y'all, this book is amazing. It is called Girl in Translation by Jean Kwak. Oh my god, y'all. I love this book so far, and I'm only 32 pages in. It's basically a story about a girl called Kimberly who is from Hong Kong. She and her mother migrates to New York City, and they end up working in a sweatshop. So the book is about the dichotomy of Kimberly's life being a straight-A student at school and college during the day, and then a sweatshop worker at night. And I think we are starting off the story when she's young, because so far she's 11 years old and she doesn't seem to be growing up. So I guess it's one of those stories where you're looking at a long period of time and you're looking at, you know, episodic snapshots of the character's life, which I'm not typically a fan of. I don't really like when books are structured like that. So I'm not sure how I'll feel about this by the time we get to like different portions of her life, but I do feel like this has the potential to be something amazing, because so far I just love the way it's written. I love the main protagonist. I love reading about, you know, her experience moving to New York City. It's just been so amazing so far, and I'm only 32 pages in, as I said. So hopefully this will be one that I really, really like, and I anticipate that it would be. And the last book that I have to talk about, I haven't started reading as yet, but I'm going to, because I'm actually going to be doing a live show about this book on March the 24th with two friends of mine. They are Paige from Minimal Bookie and Linnell from The Weekend Reader. I will link Paige's YouTube channel down below and Linnell's blog. They are amazing bookish people here on the internet. They're also Caribbean people as well. And they started a book club called BASHMENT Book Club, where basically every few months they read like a book that is set in the Caribbean, a Caribbean-based book by a Caribbean author, you know the tea. And they decided to invite me to join their club, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And the live show will be, as I said, on March the 24th on my channel. We'll be kind of like, you know, switching channels between me and Paige, but the first one of this year will be on my channel on March the 24th. And the book that we'll be reading is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis-Benn. Y'all, this book sounds so fucking good. It is basically an adult literary fiction story about two sisters who, the older one is a sex worker and she uses her money from her work to take care of her younger sister, and their community is going to be gentrified because a hotel wants to be constructed where their village is. So they have to face this kind of harsh reality, but they also have to resist it. And then the main protagonist, the older sister, she's gay, and she also has to, like, you know, deal with being gay, and she has a girl that she likes. That's a terrible way to explain what the book is about, but like that's what it's about, and it sounds fucking amazing. So I definitely recommend that y'all pick this one up and read it with us, because we're having the live show on March the 24th, and you should join us, and you should read more Caribbean books. Like, you know, put down Sarah J. Maas for like 2 minutes, you know, and read something set in the Caribbean. This is set in Jamaica. I don't know if I said that. And the queer rep in this book is Own Voices. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. I'm very much excited for this one, and I'm excited to read it with Paige and Linnell and talk about it with them and have the live show. So definitely tune in if you want to. That's my dad. March 24th, my channel, 7 p.m. Caribbean time. I don't know what time is that in other places. You could look it up. So that's everything I had to talk about with you all today. In the comments down below, if you've read any of these books and you'd like to share your thoughts on them, please do, because I'd like to know what your thoughts were. All of that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. I will see you all again at some point in the distant future. And until next time, inshallah, keep reading.